Falkland Palace in Falkland, Fife, Scotland, is a royal palace of the Scottish kings. It was one of the favourite places of Mary Queen of Scots, who took refuge here from political and religious turmoil of her times. In the late 12th century, a royal hunting lodge was located on this site. The lodge was expanded in the 13th century to operate as a castle, owned by the Earls of Fife of the noted clan Macduff. The castle was built here because the site is on a slight hill that could be defended. The surrounding land eventually was developed as the palace gardens. To the north, between the royal stable and the River Eden, was a great oak wood. Its many groves merged into the surrounding parkland. Timber was occasionally cut from the forest for royal ships of war. In 1371, Isabella Macduff, Countess of Fife, acknowledged Robert Stewart, Earl of Menteith, son of Robert II, as her heir. She made him keeper of the castle and the forest of Falkland. In 1402, Stewart, by the Duke of Albany, imprisoned his nephew and rival David Stewart, Duke of Rosny, at Falkland. He was the eldest son of Robert III. The incarcerated Duke eventually died from neglect and starvation. James II of Scotland granted Falkland to his queen consort Mary of Guelders, and the palace or castle became a favourite residence. The stables and other buildings in the close were repaired, and the kitchen was built for the visits of the royal couple in 1453. As a widow, Mary of Guelders employed her stewards, Henry Kinghorn and William Blair, to supervise improvements at Falkland Palace between 1461 and 1462. Works in the ground included the construction of 2 ponds in the hay yard, a new lawn was laid near the Queen's chamber, and a doorway was made for her to access the garden. James III and Margaret of Denmark came to Falkland in September 1473. The Court of the Exchequer met at Falkland annually to complete the accounts of the joining lands of James's mother and Mary of Guelders. She may have intended to make Falkland Palace her residence and spiritual retreat in widowhood. For 5 hours in the morning of the 28th of June, 1592, Francis Stewart, Earl of Bothwell, with the Master of Grey, James Lumsden of Airdrie, the Laird of Neardry, John Colville, and Spot with others, including men from Cumbria, attempted to capture the palace and James VI and Anne of Denmark. James VI had been warned of Bothwell's approach and had stayed in Falkland rather than going to Perth as he planned. Bothwell's plan had been revealed to the English ambassador in Edinburgh, Robert Bowes, and he had told Richard Cockburn, the Earl of Morton and the Master of Glamis, that the king should look narrowly at him. Bothwell crossed the Forth at Queen's Ferry on the 27th of June with 400 men. Bothwell's men attempted to batter down the back gate, but were repulsed by gunshots before midnight on the 27th of June. The king withdrew to the gatehouse tower, and his guards shot at Bothwell's men. According to James Melville, the defenders who favoured Bothwell loaded their guns with paper rather than bullets. Bothwell abandoned the attack at 7 o'clock in the morning and rode away with the king's horses. James Sandilands gave chase. He captured 9 men whose horses were tired. 5 were hung in Edinburgh's Canongate, and others were ransomed. Falkland Palace stands on 3 hectares of ground on a sandstone ridge which is dominated by the Lomond Hills in the background. Those walking around the gardens will see a distinct and overlapping timeline which reveals the ever-changing purpose and style of the grounds. On the lower ground in the gardens, slightly beyond the remains of the medieval castle uncovered in the 19th century, lies the original real tennis court. The Massons, William Masson and Alexander Allardyce and others built the tennis court. Its walls were finished by a lime plaster. It is the world's oldest tennis court still in use.